on one of the sites that Professor Anton runs, that he referred to in a recent video, he makes a list of aphorisms, which I really like. I like the aphorisms, and I like the concept of aphorisms generally, particularly ones that aren't immediately evident, or that ones that kind of force you to stay with them for long periods of time, because they have complexity. And I think some of the ones on Professor Anton's site are like that. They're not just words of sage advice. They're little sort of koans almost that keep you circulating around them for long periods of time. But the ones that I was not so much. I was interested in this one, partly because I didn't understand it, and so it did hold me for quite a period of time. And then it took me to what I found to be quite an interesting place, and it was the one to do with pornography. I'll put the link to Professor Anton's site on this video, so it's clear what I'm talking about. But I can't remember it exactly. But it was something about how pornography, certain pornographic magazines, for example, have extreme close-ups of, well, the subject of their, the subject matter. Close-ups of female genitalia largely, and how and I think the claim was that these images work. I'm not quite sure what the adverb was here. They work in a way which is synecdochal, synectically. Anyway, they had every kind of metonymic or a relationship of synecdoche to the woman, I suppose, whose genitalia is being exposed here. That really got me thinking about that. Partly because I don't really understand the difference between synecdoche and metonymy. They both seem to be talking about part-whole relationships and part-whole referencing. But also it led to me to think about what that relationship is within pornography and within objectification, I suppose, and embodiment. Let me just see if I can flesh out for myself what synecdoche and metonymy is, and I'm not going to try and make the distinction, because I don't think I know what it is, really. Morning. And the commonest examples that I know of about synecdoche and metonymy are things like when you talk about head of cattle. When you talk about head of cattle, you're substituting one part of the cow, one part of the steer, its head, for the whole. So if you've got 50 head of cattle, you haven't just got the heads, you've got the whole thing. So there's a metonymic or a synecdochal, possibly, relationship between the head and the entirety. Or you might talk about, or you might if you're 23 and male, you might talk about having wheels when you've actually got a car. Presumably you haven't just got 4 wheels stacked up in your garage, you've got the rest of the equipment that bolts onto that. So there's a relationship there between where the part stands in for the whole. But I know there's also maybe this is what the difference is. There's also a relationship in which the whole can stand for the part, or the genus, as they put it, can stand for the, I don't know, species or the thing. Let me think about an example for that. Well, for example, they might talk about a country in those terms. They might talk about Afghanistan is having trouble in its borders. And of course, Afghanistan isn't having trouble in its borders. The people in Afghanistan and that part of Afghanistan are having trouble in its borders. Or they might talk about the Bank of England has raised its minimum lending rate, or has raised its interest rates. And of course, it isn't the Bank of England. It's specific individuals working in concert with specific areas of government that are doing those kinds of modifications. So in that sense, a larger structure can stand in for a particular set of elements within that structure. So again, it's a kind of part-whole relationship in which the whole can stand for the part, or the part can stand for the whole, and we kind of read across that. So if that's what synecdoche and or metonymy is, what's that got to do with pornography? I mean, I think for me at least, there's 2 ways of looking at this, and neither of these make me feel very comfortable, actually, I have to say. But the first is, if I was being really, really charitable, I would say it was a part-whole relationship. I would say a part-whole relationship in the way that head of cattle is a part-whole relationship, where a part stands in for the whole. So when men buy pornographic magazines featuring close-ups of women's vaginal opening, taken from a distance of about 12 inches away, really extreme close-ups, what they're doing there, wouldn't this be charitable, what they're doing there is they're substituting that part for the whole, and what they're really thinking about, and what they're really, I should say we really, because obviously I'm implicated. What we're really doing is we're finding a moment of communion, if you like, with the whole woman. I'm not convinced by that, I have to say. I don't think we do think about the whole woman, their whole body, their whole personality, their life, their dreams, their hopes, their wishes, their careers, any of that kind of stuff. I don't think those things cross the minds of any man when they look at the vaginal openings taken from a distance of 12 inches. In which case it must, well, perhaps there's an alternative relationship. I think the alternative is probably more likely, actually, because I think the reason why I think that first is this idea of the close-up of the genitalia being an entry point to the whole woman. I just think male desire is much more instrumental than that, much more focused than that, much more objectifying than that, really, much more ends-driven. I think that's probably the case. But the alternative to that is probably more likely, and instead this one makes me feel more uncomfortable. It's more unpleasant, really, which is to do with, is there in that case a synecdochal relationship or a relationship of metonymy, of whole to part, in the way that the Bank of England stands in for individual parts of the Bank of England, or the country of Afghanistan stands in particular parts of the Afghani system. In which case, when we look at pornographic magazines, if we do look at pornographic magazines, there are occasionally pictures of entire women, sometimes even including their heads and faces. When we do that, I think it's more likely there's a synecdochal relationship. But what we're really doing is that the whole woman, the whole body of that woman, is standing in for the vaginal opening of that woman. I think there probably is, particularly in that context, that kind of a relationship, a synecdochal relationship. If there's a relationship at all, it runs in that direction, I think, rather than a part-whole. I think it goes from whole to part. And not just the picture, not just the whole woman, I suspect. The whole context of the magazine, I think, starts to do that. If it is a magazine we're talking about. Probably shows my age. Most pornography is online now. But the whole magazine, in a sense, I think, acts as a kind of whole synecdochal pointer towards the part that we're really interested in, which is the genitalia. And I think that even goes for something like Playboy magazine, which famously has articles on motoring, or on politics with a small p, or on science. Occasional articles by people around the sides of that, which I'm imagining that most men flick through very quickly and certainly don't buy Playboy because of its articles on motoring. But I think even those things probably act as part of the whole gestalt, which is setting up a synecdochal relationship with the particular part of the female body that the whole magazine is designed to focus our attention on. Maybe. I've just finished off with a story, actually. I don't know if this is relevant or not. But when I was a kid, growing up, when I was about 12 or 13, I suppose, me and my mate Fred, who was also, I'm called Fred, and my friend was also called Fred, who lived 4 doors down from me, we were quite interested in pornography. But of course, in the 1960s and early 70s, you couldn't really get pornography in Britain. Or if you could, you certainly couldn't get it at the age of 12 and 13. And we didn't get National Geographic, which I think is the alternative pornography of choice in some parts of the world. But so we'd look at either the underwear section of Kate's catalogue, or we'd look at like holiday brochures, because holiday brochures are pictures of women in bikinis. And I remember on one occasion, Fred, my friend Fred, brought this picture of this family, with a very clearly a constructed family, very attractive woman on the cover, running along the beach with her family. She's wearing a bikini, she's got a kid with her, she's got a young athletic husband with her. And he showed me this, and then he carefully tore out the picture to take off the rest of the family, so it's just this woman running along the beach in a bikini. And then he very carefully tore her head and her arms and her legs, so it was just her torso from her neck down to the top of her thighs. And then he carefully tore off the bikini. So all we had left was a piece of paper about a quarter of an inch high by about an inch wide, with just a midriff on it, just from the line below the top half of the bikini and just the line above the bottom half of the bikini. The bit of bare skin, which is a really surreal object, actually, thinking about it. Not quite sure what the relevance of that is, really. But I suppose, but once we'd done that, of course, once he'd done that, there was